Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Rittner, and I am the Interim Chair of Design, Research, Writing, and Criticism here at SVA. We are an intensive one-year MA program that examines design in all its contexts and consequences. So we are, of course, thrilled to host this talk tonight with TK Nakagaki and Stephen Heller, who is a founding faculty of our department, where he still teaches a master's seminar in design, research, and writing. But I'm actually not here to introduce Stephen and TK. Ann Quito, one of our alum, will do that. I'm actually just here to give you a little 2-minute pitch about our program, because this talk tonight really demonstrates the importance of design-minded, critical thinking in contextualizing the historical foundations of contemporary life, and demonstrates that great writing catalyzes ideas and insights, giving us opportunities to engage in really meaningful, complex, and often uncomfortable dialogues about the forms, capacities, and impacts of making. So in our program, we invite students to learn from esteemed faculty like Stephen Heller and Carrie Jacobs, Leighton Modal, Robin Prograben, Alex Deleuze, how to be critical cultural theorists who ignite provocative new conversations about how design informs every facet of social life. And as many of our thesis graduates have already done, to hold up canonical and vernacular forms of making, from prison garb to slave papers, from science journalism to street signage and board games and comic books, sanitation systems, that's one of our students who's looking at board games, and historic house interpretations, organizing systems, all of these things that are worthy of critical consideration. And not only do we hope to welcome robust, inspired pools of applicants to learn and grow with us, but we also want to invite all of you in your various professional capacities to partner with us in becoming guest speakers and critics in our program. So we are hoping that you will contact us when you want to propose new courses and new fields of study for design, research, writing, and criticism. We want you to suggest new internships and professional opportunities for our students. We ask you to attend our portfolio days and thesis presentations in the spring, and we also hope to grow a community of ethical design researchers, writers, and critics for the future, and we want you to partner with us in doing that. So, and of course, to attend events like tonight where really meaningful conversations can happen. So if you have questions or thoughts about our program, I hope that you'll contact me or any of our, Eric Schwartow, who's our Director of Operations, any of our students and alum and faculty who are here tonight and wherever you meet them at SVA. But tonight I'm going to pass this over to Ann Quito, who will tell you more about the program and introduce our guests. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I am so pleased to have a minor role in this major conversation. My name is Ann Quito. I'm a graduate of this program. I'm also a journalist. So in that vein, I thought, to get us in the mood, I might read you some of today's headlines. 1. Swastika drawn in snow near Syracuse among latest racist incidents on campus. 2. Pencil swastika graffiti found in private parking garage. And 3, High Castle producers destroyed every swastika used on the show, and the video is oh so satisfying. So it's incredible that in 2019, the appearance, the whisper, the hint of the swastika is still breaking news. Why? We have 2 scholars tonight who grace us with their presence, who have published 2 books about the topic. They have similar obsessions, but they're coming from a different place. I want to briefly introduce you to both of them. Many of you know Steve Heller as the most prolific chronicler, commentator, and champion of graphic design of our time. He has authored, co-authored, and edited, is it 193? Is that 193 books-ish on design, illustration, and related themes. Steve is the co-chair of the SVA MFA Design, designer as author, entrepreneur, and as Jennifer mentioned, a co-founder of this program. The Swastika Symbol Beyond Redemption is the 3rd book he's written on the subject. And here is Reverend Dr. TK Nakagaki, He is a Buddhist priest, scholar, and author of The Buddhist Swastika and Hitler's Cross. Let me hold it up. Rescuing a Symbol of Peace from the Forces of Hate. After studying Buddhist doctrine in Kyoto and Osaka, TK earned an MA in linguistics from Cal State Fresno and a doctorate of ministry in multi-faith studies from the New York Theological Seminary. And among other things, he is also an accomplished calligrapher. Hopefully tonight's civil discussion will expand our minds about this incendiary symbol. So here's how tonight will go. First, Steve will give a brief lecture on his research, followed by a short film, and then TK will do the same, a short lecture. We segue into a conversation, and hopefully at the very end, you will have some good questions as well. Just a note, we have filmmakers here. They're doing a documentary on TK. So as the note here says, entry to this room means you may be on camera. And they also invite you at the very end to speak to them, to give your thoughts on what happened tonight. Without further ado, would you please help me welcome Steve Heller.
Thank you. So tonight we're here to discuss this, one of the oldest symbols ever created. Whatever it's called, swastika, hooked cross, fly-fought, cow, manji, gamadian, and many other names, it's become associated with the Nazi Party and the German nation as a symbol of evil.
I brought something I want you all to see. Simple. Arian.
What does it mean?
It means the unconquerable. Do you like it? Perhaps do.
It's very hypnotic.
The symbol has a long legacy and a wide diaspora. It was a sign of luck, fertility, and spirituality. Histories abound both in and out of Germany, including possibly the earliest in the US, Thomas Wilson's important 1896 Smithsonian edition that shows its widespread benign use throughout the continents. According to the swastika migration theory, the swastika's earliest known habitat is a territory at the valley of the River of Indus in India. There are various notions on how the swastika spread to Europe, but its most significant discovery was a dig in 1871 by archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann in Homer's legendary city of Troy. This is a piece of pottery with the symbol that he found. Swastikas, sun wheels, and sun whirls are found in many cultures and countries, with the main similarity being the intersecting hooks, sometimes geometric and other times more free-form or curvilinear. This card was handed out to American troops to show the distinctions between the forms. Kaiser Wilhelm II, the German monarch who left after World War I, was an early swastikalist, and he even wrote a book in 1934 that looked at the swastika in various directions and one of them was representing human form. The swastika took on a mythic status. It was strongly believed that it had nothing to do with the Nazis, even as late as 1920s. It was a common printer's device and ornamental cut. It can be found in American architectural decoration during the 19th and early 20th centuries, and this is at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. It was ubiquitous on all sorts of ephemera representing good luck and good fortune. These playing cards are aptly emblazoned with the sign. We'll see other examples of Indian popular culture, but this swastika fireworks was a common motif. Yes, and even Coca-Cola used the form as a novelty. And the Dakota Corn Palace added the symbol to its exterior arabesques. The Corn Palace burned down when the methane from all that corn combusted. Watch out what you do with corn. The Girls Club issued the swastika as an emblem of honor to its members and published an eponymous magazine. The Boy Scouts were not immune from its hypnotic charms either. The American Biscuit Company used the swastika as a label, and if you collected a bunch of them, you'd win a prize. The Pacific Coast Biscuit Company copied the American Biscuit Company and also used the swastika label and went into copyright suit. Here is a deodorant where the swastika is simply part of the package design. In Santa Fe, an American Native Peoples Museum shows crafts that brought together and shows the swastika as a good luck sign. This icon of Ganesh is situated on the swastika. This is a temple in Indonesia. And this is a street in Cochin. Just note the address. Sanatan Dharma, the six-pointed star, is the shape that's generally understood to consist of two triangles. We think of it as the Star of David. But one triangle pointed up and the other down, and it was locked in a harmonious embrace. One represented male, the other represented female. The two components are called Aum and Urm in Sanskrit, and symbolize human position between sky and earth. A friend was greeted this when he entered a hotel in India. He was a little shocked. There are incidental swastikas all over the world that have nothing to do with the Nazis. This is an insignia for the 45th Division, later known as the Thunderbird Division in Oklahoma. It was an American force that went into Europe during World War I. And this is the 55th Pursuit Squadron that also used a swastika in an American Air Force plane, Army Air Force. May our glorious flag and this lucky star guide and keep you wherever you are. Hitler is said to have first contact with the Hakenkreuz, the Hooked Cross, when he was a young student at the Abbey of Lembeck am Traum in Upper Austria. At Lembeck, he saw the swastika engraved on the four corners of the monastery, where it had been sculpted several years earlier pursuant to orders of the abbot Theodoric Hagen. Wilhelm Defke was not an ideological Nazi. He was a graphic designer. But in the struggle of signs in the Weimar Republic, in the Journal of History, Volume 13, Sherwin Simon cites and documents this logo that he did when he was at the Magdeburg School in Germany, where he taught. He joined the party and argued for modern designs linked to Nazi policy on account of the party's technological sophistication and opposition to narrow provincialism. As you can see, his logos are very streamlined and very rectilinear. There's an apocryphal story that from his assistant that the Nazis took his version of the sign and used it and never paid him for it. Another crime against humanity. This is the ABCs of National Socialism. Hitler adopted the symbol for a variety of reasons and ultimately saw to it that it was used efficiently and powerfully as the brand of his fledgling party. Here are different flags and banners that were used and shown in the ABC book. Here's the essay with flags. the sign, flags, and armbands tied to the populace together as a single nationalist system. Here are young girls all looking to the swastika and looking to their leader as one. Boris Artsabashev, who was a Russian-born American illustrator, saw the swastika as ripe for satire. It is used today in many different ways, and very strange ways throughout the world. This is a food shop in Indonesia, Hitler's cross. Irredeemable is what I called the first edition of this book. The question was, is the swastika irredeemable, question mark. As long as these things happen, there is no irredeemability for it. The purpose of my book is not to cast doubt on the millions who do not see the swastika in an evil light, but the millions who suffered and continue to be tormented by the symbol and its affinities. And these are some of those hate group affinities that are in use today. So these are my two books on the subject, the one that we're talking about tonight, and Iron Fists Branding the 20th Century Totalitarian State. That's my little introduction. We're going to show a little bit of the film that's being done on the swastika, which follows TK around talking about this with various people and talking about his own philosophy.
My name is Toshikazu Kenjitsu Nakagaki, so people call me TK as a initial part. And I myself was born in Japan, in Osaka, and I came to the United States in 1985. So actually I lived here about 35 years in this country, United States. Right now, it seems like in terms of swastika or the Hakenkreuz, we just need a little more information available so that people can read and see. 一応じゃあここにあるその曼字っていうのは基本的には仏教のシンボルっていうような形で考えても全然問題はないっていう形。
Pretty shocked to see it here, to be honest with you. I didn't expect it to be in a temple of all places, or a shrine. I think just because it has such a negative connotation.
140年ぐらい前に、関東地域の かなり広範囲の地図を作りました。その時に地図記号を定めております。その最初の時から曼字の記号をお寺に使ってございます。
アメリカ人は何をもって自分をアメリカ人として見るか、日本人は何をもって日本人として見るかってところに考えたときに、日本人で結局まだ悲しいところ血なんですよね。でもアメリカ人って結局例えば朝とかに旗に忠誠を誓うとかそういうのあるんですよね。だから旗が持つ意味って多分シンボルが持つ意味多分かなりもっと日本人とは違う感覚を持ってるから。
もう3000万人の外国の旅行者が日本に来ていただいてますし、オリンピックに向けておそらく数はどんどん増えていくと思いますので、だんだんこの曼字の記号って何なのって思う方は増えてくるんだと思うんですね。でその時にこういう背景がある、こういう歴史的な背景があるということを、やはりきちんと理解をしてもらうというのは大事だと思いますが。
Symbols require us to be careful. Hate crimes here in the city have increased immeasurably in the last couple of years, and now the swastika is being painted in all kinds of places. So I think it's important, particularly for Buddhists and perhaps more generally for many Asians, to understand what a provocative and negative symbol it is when used as part of white supremacy, white nationalism, anti-Semitism.
It was used as a trademark, or at least a supplementary mark for many products, because in history it represented good fortune, good luck, the four seasons, any number of more deeply symbolic and or spiritual things.
But to try and convince people who still are bearing the scars of that use of swastika, because whether Hitler called it that or not, if the last thing the person you love most in the world experienced was a person wearing that symbol, blowing their brains out, what they called it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. To them, it doesn't matter. And that, no, there's no maybe. That's the problem here. If in the end, historical reconstruction,
漫字を通してじゃあもう少しそこにダイアログが生まれていく、だから対話が生まれていくっていうのが一番私としては大切なことで、その平和っていうのを私はずっと考えてきてるから、平和のシンボルっていうことはやっぱりどういうふうに相手を理解するか、お互いを理解していくかっていうのがすごく大切になってくると思うんで、だからそのシンボルをね、蘇らせることっていうのはある意味で人類の歴史をちゃんと蘇らさせてもらうことにもなるし、ヘイトクライムもどうやってできてるかもよくわかると思うんですよね。Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me all right. My voice is a little weak. Actually, I just got back from Japan last night, and then also half jet lag, but also, so which means sometimes I lose my voice. Although, yeah, I have pretty nice voice, I guess, but today you may be experiencing something different. But first of all, I just wanted to mention, these are a book that she showed, so I just put something, and she introduced already about my background, so I'm going to skip those things. And so maybe I start from here. One of the reasons why I started to do my book is a difference between those two. Because I was born in Japan, raised in Japan, you know, the swastika is always like this, quiet, you know, the peaceful, the, you know, the represent the Buddhist temple, and or Buddha, or Buddha's mind. Nothing to do with, you know, against, you know, hate or against, or the, you know, the violence. So that's the symbol of the swastika. So only the Buddha can have the swastika in the heart of the you know, the body. Nobody else. Even bodhisattvas, they can carry the swastika on hands, but not here. And so it's the symbol of kind of a light. And but so these are some of the understanding that I have. It's just quotation from the Buddhist scriptures. You know, among the Buddhist scriptures, there is the description like this is the some of them. There's many, but I just pick up just for today. So you can read it. But at that time, the Tathagata, the Buddha, exposed the treasure-like light from the swastika or swastika, the same one, on his chest. That the light has 100,000 colors and illuminates all the Buddha's world, spread like the particles throughout 10 quarters. It's one of the sutras. And then the other one from the swastika, diamond-like adornments in his heart, the Buddha spread the great bright lights, like those. And there are many examples like those things. And so it is definitely I mean, this is about 2,000 years, over 2,000 years anyway, in Asia, all over the place. But it's not just for the Buddhism, but also there's a Hindu-Jewish leadership summit. It was held in Jerusalem in 2008. So there is some parts of understanding. Here is, you can see the Hindus, how the Hindus see the swastika. And swastika is an ancient and greatly auspicious symbol of the Hindu tradition. And it is inscribed on Hindu temples, ritual altars, entrances, and even account books. And at the citation, I have to change my glasses, but sorry, you can read it. But anyway, I look young, but sometimes that doesn't tell why do I have to change my glasses is because of the age too. This version of this sacred symbol was misappropriated by the Third Reich in Germany and abused as the emblem under which heinous crimes were perpetuated against the humanity, particularly the Jewish people. The participants recognized that this symbol is and has been sacred to Hindus for millennia, long before its misappropriation. So anyway, these are some of the quotes that I have, but also, so that's the kind of image that I have. But then I came to the United States 1985 for the first time. And then I just had some experience at the temple because I was making the flower shrine of the Buddha. And then I put all the flowers. It's a birthday of the Buddha. So, but in Japan, when I did was normally after I put the flower shrine, we just put the swastika symbol with a flower, like a chrysanthemum. So, but then the members came and then say, "Oh, you can't do this here," and then so that was the first encountering for me because there's no idea at that time. Well, actually, we do have an idea, but in Japan we have two different words for the swastika is manji in Japanese, Hakenkreuz, which is a Hitler's words, which is Hakenkreuz. So there's two different things totally. And then it is different things, actually, originally too. Hakenkreuz is, of course, it's a cross. So that's why anti-Semitism is the long history of the cross with 2,000 years. So that's what the cross is about for the swastika. But then the part of the Buddhist tradition and Hindu others, that's before the Christ. Nothing to do with the Christ. So nothing to do with anti-Semitism either. And so now the problem, what happened is after I came to the United States, and so after that incident, I learned, difficult for the Jewish people to see those signs. So that's why we said, maybe I shouldn't use it anymore. So I didn't use the swastika symbol 25 years, actually. And I told people if they use it, you should probably think of the other people's suffering. And then so maybe you shouldn't use that symbol. But then recently, 2009, I believe, and when we had an interfaith gathering, we have like 100 religious leaders gather. And also we have a guest, so-called expert, and who came and then talk about swastika because it's a hate crime. But what he said actually changed my mind, meaning he said, this swastika is a universal symbol of evil. Now, if he said this is a symbol of the West, this is what it is, then I don't have to say anything. But when you say universal symbol, that's a totally different meaning. And I asked the question to this expert. He said, he doesn't know anything about the swastika, the Buddhism, Hinduism, or the other Asians or Native Americans too. Because we've been using it, and now he says universal symbol of evil. This is totally something is wrong with the education, probably the way that was treated. And so then, if it was controlled education, I guess swastika has to be evil. And even Hitler didn't say swastika anyway, but yet he used the word swastika. So there are many things I start realizing we need some kind of material that we can provide, that we can discuss. Right now, of course, we have a book now, so that's why we can start the discussion. But before, we don't have any books like those. So that's so even like Hitler always used the Hakenkreuz, that's a German language, the hooked cross. And the swastika means su as a good, and then the good plus, to be. So it's a stage of goodness. And these are interesting example. So when you translate hook, Hakenkreuz as hooked cross, you can clearly see what the cross is about. This swastika, well, it's not a swastika, it's a hooked cross is about. And so anyway, I think time is running, so I'm going to finish. So my point is basically awareness. The reason why I write this book is having awareness of the people, knowing the truth, not just one-sided truth. And the education also, necessary to learn all those other parts. And then the dialogues, like this one, open dialogue about this particular symbol. And then maybe mutual understanding may be coming up out of it. So those are my purpose of this book. So I thank you very much.
Yes. First of all, I've had the pleasure of reading both books, and I have to tell you, it's quite challenging to read them on the subway. This one has a double swastika, and I've gotten a lot of scowls. And this one is wonderfully illustrated, but also hints at it. I wonder if you've had the same plight, either of your discussions on this book cover.
Well, when the first edition came out, Mirko Ilic, who designed the first book and the cover, and this book as well, in the first book, he split the swastika in half. So there was, the bottom part was on the top, and the top part was on the bottom. But you could still read the swastika. I had to read it inside a copy of Playboy so that I wouldn't be embarrassed by it. So it's always been a problem. I gave it to the woman who wrote No Logo.
Oh, no, Naomi.
Naomi Klein. And she said she was reading it on the airplane and got dirty looks from the stewardesses. So it's a symbol that still sends neural messages.
It's true.
Whatever it's called, it sends neural messages.
It's true. What about you?
Yeah, the same.
You use two, not one, but two.
Yeah, actually, I have in Japan, I have Japanese book, and then here the other one, so English one. So, yeah, in Japan, nobody pay attention to, first of all. So everything is fine. We just no reaction or anything. There's just one of the book, they're reading it. So that's. But then if you open this book in here, there's because I did at the police department gathering, so I know that they call me later. They're really annoyed or they're really upset about what I brought the book, but I just brought the book. But so also the library and so forth. When I research it. Because a librarian seems kind of the face that you can, because I try to read a Mein Kampf, but then they just, because I have different translation of the Mein Kampf, also ask, then why am I, doing the study for the Mein Kampf? Mein Kampf, the Hitler's book. So those are some of the experience that I can't.
But you're sticking with the cover.
Oh, this is not my design. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
It's a publisher's design, by the way. So my design was different.
We have to look that up at some point. Okay. I have a question for Steve. You describe your interest in the swastika as an obsession. And you've written 3 books on it, but this one, I noticed something in the introduction where you revise your earlier opinions. If I might read it, it's sort of clearly put. You say, I have written articles about serious attempts at reclamation and rehabilitation. Initially, I was sympathetic. However, as long as the Nazi iteration continues to elicit destructive power, there is no way it will ever be redeemed. And I mean never. 2019.
Right. And I mean that for the West. I understand that it is a symbol, a spiritual symbol, but it has and TK and I have argued about this. I say it's been hijacked. He says it's not the swastika. I think it's semantics. The fact is it was hijacked, whether they called it that or not. It ultimately is called that in the New York Times and elsewhere during the period of time when it was first unfurled. And so as long as it has that meaning, as long as that has not been reclaimed by somebody in authority or some place in authority, it's forever tainted. And, you know, it's interesting that headline you read about men in the High Castle, them burning the swastikas. You may remember in the second or third season, they filled an entire subway car with advertising for that show, and they used the swastika, and they had to take it down. So even though the swastika is a symbol that actually sells books, when I started out, there were two things that sold books: the color red and a swastika.
Golly, here it is.
So
But this book is not sold out much.
Yet.
it doesn't have a great plot, but it is a good book.
We've heard a lot of rational arguments just from the premise. It strikes me that as this topic is really, there's a really large emotional component to it. I wonder, Steve, if you can talk about how you feel every time you see a swastika and what you think of.
Well, every time I see a swastika, there are two feelings that I have. One is I remember my grandmother showing me a postcard that she got from her father, who was stuck in the Woj ghetto and probably was murdered either in Woj or on the way to Auschwitz. It was stamped with symbols of Grosse Deutschland, which were the eagle and the swastika. So I feel that a sense of loss. She never talked to me about it. She never mentioned the Holocaust at all. The other feeling I get is a certain voyeuristic excitement, because, and I was talking to Jennifer about this earlier, it's like watching a train wreck. I can't get enough of books about or films on what went on during that period under this symbol. The photographs of daily life in Nazi Germany just floor me, whether it's the sense that I can't believe it actually happened, or the sense that it was so powerful that from a design standpoint, it made such an impact amongst the people in that and occupied countries. So the obsession is twofold. There's the fetishistic one, and then there's the emotional one.
Okay, how do you feel when you hear that people saying it's a universal symbol of hate? And I wonder if you have a personal connection beyond your doctoral thesis.
Oh, okay. First of all, before I do the dissertation,
Yes.
so I went to the Auschwitz and also Treblinka, and then then the Sachsenhausen and one in the Netherlands also. But then the one thing I went to see, because whether I should continue to this the study, because that symbol itself is such the big connotation here in this country. But then when I went and I just paid respect, as I'm Buddhist monk, so I just put the incense and do a little prayer for the different places, and I went to the many graveyard as well. And but then what I felt at that time was slightly different. The swastika is also buried with Jewish people, because it was sad to see, actually, for me, the swastika is used the way that kill people is supposed to be much more bring the light instead of, the darkness. The swastika, as I show it, that's the su as a happiness. It's supposed to bring the happiness, not, the unfortunate, the sadness and killing people. So I felt by Hitler did was they buried the swastika as well with the people's, with the Jewish people, for me. So that was my feeling. Because so that's why I decided to write this book too, because maybe this is just a strange feeling that I had at that time was maybe if the swastika come back again with the real lights, then maybe Jewish people whoever killed under the swastika maybe the liberated again. It was kind of weird. Maybe from the religious point, I think it's something the darkness is there, but then the darkness could be also, bring the light. Little light can open up. Because one thing that I feel, I was talking with the Chief Rabbi of Poland, Michael Shudley, before, and so he suggested actually go to the maybe Auschwitz, and also if I can bring the good meaning of swastika somewhere, even like 1% from the. Right now it's a totally darkness, like 100% evil. But if we realize, if we can have a little opening, like a 1% or 2%, light, then that would be very successful for me. And then because the big difference between just total darkness and then a little bit light, and then hope that little bit light. Because one of the images that I have is, swastika is a little, 45 degree. So what I might try to do is I try to turn back to this way. This is the original swastika, which is all the total light comes. Right now, because of the darkness, there's no lights come at all. But when I turn, maybe I should be able to bring, well, I don't know, I should be able to or not. But then that's the kind of feeling that I have. So I just wanted to contribute even a little bit of the, open that if I can do. So that's the efforts that I'd like to do. So basically, for my strategy or my promise is always, if somebody say you can't do it, I should be able to do it. That's my feeling. Never means there should be the way to do something. So I feel like there should be the way to transform again. And so that was my feeling.
You don't mind me probing. You have such an affable character around you. Is there a part of you that's also angry? It seems like you're, you are? It seems like your argument sort of describes this Western sort of, Western claim to a symbol that's ancient to you. Does that anger you too?
Oh, no, I don't agree about what happens to here, in one way, because that's what happens. So it's not anger or likes and dislike, this is what's happening. But the things what I feel is, because normally, those evil things could be done because of the ignorance also. So for me, this is a book for clear the ignorance so that we can have a light.
Let me put that in context. You hinted at it in the clip. You visited the people who make maps in Japan. As you may know, Buddhist temples are denoted by a mirror swastika, right? And there is a move for the 2020 Olympics to eliminate this symbol in favor of a building, right? To sort of like kind of not shock the Western visitors. How do you feel about that?
Well, actually, I wrote the letter to them.
Yes?
Now they're not changing. Because I think sometimes, because in a way, it's like everything is Euro center things are involved here too. Everything's Europe is right, and then the other parts is wrong, maybe. Because this is one of the other reasons that I wanted to strongly, at this time, swastika has been, because of the years, like 2,000 years or 3,000 years, 5,000 years, possibly. It's a long period. So which is a history of humanity is there. And so why do you have to destroy? Because of the only 100 years of the Hitler's act can destroy this. It's like kind of sad to see why Hitler has more powerful than the symbol of the sun. or symbol of the light. And so for me, that's the kind of challenge to the Hitler. I'm not challenged to Jewish people or anybody, but rather to the Hitlers. Why you use this way is totally wrong. And then so I wanted to separate from the right now swastika or Hakenkreuz equal to the Hitler, but then I guess we could have a little more the weaker the power of the Hitler, so that we could have a little more to be able to see the swastika, not in a biased way, but also because of this particular swastika itself, which bring the people's liberation and help a lot of people, bring the comfort. And so that aspect should be also emphasized. And what was the question? My jet lag is calling me, but I hope I'm answering okay.
Does that linguistic separation allay it for you?
No, the linguistic separation, which I've thought about a lot since I met TK, and I tend to, I'm a liberal, I tend to lean backwards to understand, and I read TK's book with great interest. But linguists, words, particularly in Nazi Germany, were ways of obfuscating reality. Resettlement was execution, was annihilation. What the Japanese decide to do in terms of the Olympics, that's a commercial decision. It's not a philosophical decision. What we do here in this country is, and particularly in the Trump age, is we reinforce and enable white supremacy, which has never gone away from the founding of the country to now, by allowing certain symbols to exist. When I talk about the swastika, I also include all those other symbols that either were influenced by or have a sense of the swastika. For me, the cross is an interesting concept. For some, it means total redemption and resurrection, and for others, it means cruelty and violence, conquering. It depends on who's wearing it and where it's being worn. But as the priest in the film said, it's blood for the Japanese and it's symbol for the Americans. And if we can't even arbitrarily say this symbol is bad and should never exist in our borders, that's perfectly fine with me. I'm not a free speech absolutist. When it comes to certain things, because time is going to wipe away so much, we need to retain certain mnemonics.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, also, but at the same time, United States nowadays is much more diverse. So diverse means you have people from Asia, and not only the so-called Caucasian, the one of the race. So there are many race and many people coming, and then putting down one symbol, which is very important symbol for the Asia, means you're putting down all the Asian people. And this is one of the symbol. Even this is sad to know, the interfaith gathering. This is the most interfaith symbol ever probably existed in the world. But because of the tendency of this particular idea of the Nazis equal to the Hitlers, or swastika equal to the Hitlers. So because of that, we can't even use this particular symbol. Although again, Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, many places we have been using this symbol. But then it is always sad to see those things happen. So for me, this is another challenge to bring a little awareness, and I'm not, my plan is it's not like my lifetime, maybe, maybe another 100 years, there will be change or something.
There was a guy in Canada named Man Woman, and he ran something called the Friends of the Swastika. And I got to talking to him, and, you know, he, like TK, he's a very intelligent, very caring human being, and was making some wonderful points. And the points are all valid, but as I say, there's a moment where even validity doesn't stand up to scrutiny, where, you know, it becomes kind of like a catechism. You just believe it because you have to believe it.
Steve, I have a question. So we're having this conversation here, in this context. Do you think this dialogue will be different if we were in Japan?
Oh, of course. First of all, we'd be speaking Japanese.
Well, yes.
Second of all, I'd be eating a lot better. But yeah, I mean, it would be a very different conversation. Even though during the war, the Japanese were allies, and the two flags hung together at times to show their allegiance. There was also the manji that existed on paper, on walls and stuff like that, where you would get confused. And that's the slide that I showed of the U.S. Army. I mean, the Army actually would send around a lot of interesting propaganda to its soldiers so that they had some sense that there was the enemy and there was the innocent. Just as a quick aside, the first letter I got for the book when it first came out was from a Native American. Native American had gone to SVA, and he had heard that I was doing the book, and he wrote me a letter before it came out saying, "I'm so glad you're doing the book because now you'll look at the symbol as for what it is." Then he sent me the letter after the book came out and basically said, "Screw you. You're a cultural colonialist." And I admit to being a cultural colonialist. You know, at the same time, you can read all sorts of accounts of where the symbol was just wiped off, you know, there's a town in Canada called Swastika. They didn't change that name. But at the same time, I quote the New York Times in my book that Indian tribes in the Southwest burned all their swastika memorabilia, or memorabilia is the wrong word.
TK, like, again, to that question, we're having this conversation here. Do you sometimes feel you're alone in this side?
Oh, not really.
No.
Why?
Okay.
Because, you know.
He has a movie being made.
That's true.
Yeah, and then the thing is also some of the religious leaders, some people are very open about this particular one because it's just a part of the education that I'm trying to do. I'm not convinced one or the others. I just basically what I try to do is you need the fact to know. I mean, right now there's no discussion anyway because this is only, you know, everything. Because sometimes I heard the comments like, whatever I said, it doesn't matter. So what does that mean is the people who have already educated this way, emotionally this way, then you can't change. Well, I mean, Buddhism, talking about everything changed, nothing remains without change. So everything is changed. If you can't change, something is not correct because interdependence, origination, and so forth. So that's why, in a way, things change. It's almost impossible. And also, one of the reasons I feel like it's, pronunciation is no good. The Rabbi...
Rebbe Nachman.
Rebbe Nachman?
Of Breslov.
So I actually enjoy his quotes. And especially the last, I mean, I quote many of those him, but then he gave me a lot of encouragement because I just have many of them, but there's an introduction of my book too. But then one that it says, if you believe that you can damage, then believe that you can fix. If you believe that you can harm, then believe that you can heal. And I decided to believe this statement. Okay. So because you're damaged by the people, now you should probably fix it, because once you steal it, this is just the moral things. You know, if Hitler took it, or the symbol from the East, Asia, and so forth, so he damaged it. So after that, Europe supposed to do is clean up all the symbols and return as it was before. But now, what the other way is saying, because they brought it, and then now they start saying, oh, you have to change your symbol because this is a symbol of the evil. So why the Japan or other Eastern country are using this? You have to change it. That's what the attitude I feel, which is totally, for me, morally wrong. And so that's why this is another challenge for me. That what are you going to do? You take it, and then so you just return with a way that the Japanese side is different. We just receive something, we just give back more nice one. Not just just give it back, but also maybe I have another present for you. So that's the way it should be.
Well,
but anyway, whether it works or not, I don't know. But,
I have a last question, and then we'll take questions from the audience. To both of you, do you think banning or talking about or discussing the Hakenkreuz or the swastika actually gives it power?
Talking about give power to who?
Yeah, like if we ban it, like swastika and I guess Adolf Hitler. And on the flip side, what do you think of efforts to make light of the symbol? I was just watching Jojo Rabbit this weekend, and it's described as an anti-hate satire. What do you think that does to this conversation?
I didn't watch that one.
Okay.
No, but I interviewed the author of the novel that it's based on. And the movie is nothing like the novel, by the way. There's a thought, and it takes many forms, that if you make something that's dark light, as you were talking about, you can change it. You can redeem it. There's something good to be said about redemption. And then there's something dangerous about redemption and forgiveness. It's great to have the spiritual strength to forgive, even if you don't forget. But there are times when forgiveness can be a retreat from your own moral position. And I don't want to get into too heavy a dialogue about it, but I wrote the book the first time in part because I was obsessed with the sign and symbol, but also because as a graphic designer, I realized that so many different symbols have multiple meanings, and particularly commercial symbols. So, Tylenol gets a few bottles with poison in it, and they've got to take it off the shelves. The Gap changes their logo, and people get crazy about it.
Turn back.
Symbolism is a really powerful art, craft, and phenomena. And to me, ultimately, whatever happens to the swastika, and I'm sure it's going to, at some point, lose its negative qualities. It's bound to as the generations proceed. But symbolism is still an issue, certainly with many of us who come out of the design world, that needs to be addressed, and this is a good way to address it.
Thank you. For me, it's not. I'm not talking about really redemption, but rather, understanding only, really. Meaning, like, it doesn't have to be one symbol. Could be yes or no. It could be both. That's basically. If it's the use in Nazi Germany, yeah, of course they are used for the another reasons. Of course, that's a Christ reason, right? There's crusade reasons to kill others. And but those things never be discussed really much. Also, so I hope this book will bring some more, how you kill other people. I mean, like how you create the war is two just are always fighting each other or something like those. And so there's a nature of that too, is what I would like to come out of this particular book. But also there's the sense for me is a difference between East and West too. Because for me, it doesn't have to be yes or no. It could be yes and no or yes. It's like here is a very interesting building that we're living here. Because when you come in, this street, your flag is a blue, and then across the street, the other building flag is red. Is it orange? Oh,
Red,
okay.
orange.
Yeah, it's like United States. But then red and
They got a deal on the colors.
Oh, is that right? But then the one is blue and the one is red. But anyway, that kind of has to be one or the others. But then the part of the Buddhist or Eastern way of having the conversation, or something is like both can exist, and then it's like a purple. So I'm searching for the purple, not right or wrong, reframe or not reframe, but it is just the way that was. So that's why we just accept whatever the situation of the things happens. So that's my approach, nothing to do. I mean, if it's naturally disappear, it's fine. And it doesn't disappear, it's fine too. So that's how my part of the philosophy goes.
I wish I could be like you. But, it just reminds me of another symbol. The Japanese flag is probably the most beautiful flag in the world. So simple, so austere, yet full of energy. And the Japanese battle flag is actually quite a beautiful flag. During World War II, these were as toxic as anything could be. The battle flag may still be toxic to those who fought in the war. It's probably neutral to most people. And the Japanese flag itself, I think most people wouldn't even relate it to any of the things that happened during the war.
That's always, and as you know, history goes the other way too. If you're living in a country like Japan, then that doesn't mean the other, it becomes an opposite. The war, right, system. If you're in the United States, enemy is the other one. If you're in a part of the enemy country, enemy is you. Right, so it's that it doesn't say that's evil and so forth either. Actually, all the human beings is like that. The stupidity for me that just this is the right things that we do. The other people think that's the right thing, so that's why they fight. I mean, they never have a war. I'm doing wrong. You're not gonna really fight with it, probably, or sometimes they do, for the name or for the for their
To paraphrase Pogo, I saw the enemy and it is me.
And then, actually, in the part of the Buddhist, for me, is very important is we are not perfect either. I mean, so I have, as you said, anger, as I said, angers or, greed and so forth, but yet, we do have the other way too. So, because everybody, the human beings is not 100% evil or 100%, the good, but has some parts is good, some part is not good. That's why we listen to each other, right? If I know everything, I don't have to listen to you or something like that. If you know everything, you don't have to listen to me. But since we don't have everything, maybe we may think we have everything, but we're not really perfect, so that's why we wanted to listen to. And then maybe the war is a lesson that we learned from the World War II. I mean, so many people killed, and then even but the reflection is very important for me. It's not who is winning and who is losing. Right now, the problem might be, who's on the UN, like nuclear weapons that I'm talking, because why do we need? Because some of the countries which won the war during World War II, they wanted to keep the nuclear weapons. So like those things are all related.
Terrain.
All related. But anyway.
I think this is, we have time for one or two questions before we adjourn. Yes, ma'am.
One thing is, it makes me feel sad to know that everyone in Japan picks up the book and thinks it's just a book. Doesn't look at the symbols and doesn't have a sensitivity to what it means to so many people. And I don't see it, I mean, I'm not Eastern and I understand that I don't have an Eastern mentality. But to me, what happened in World War II is very, very global. And it has ramifications and implications for humanity. And when Rabbi Nachman said, if you damage, then you fix, which you just informed me about, you know, for me, I don't see fixing as softening a symbol of hate and a symbol of genocide. I think the way you fix is to remember and to take it for what it means now, because in my world, when something is broken, it doesn't get fixed. You know, I break a glass, I can't fix it. And I apologize for not really having a question, but there's one passion that I just have to say that.
Yeah, thank you. I don't
Would you
know
like to respond?
Well, I appreciate any comments actually for me too, because I just wanted to share my thoughts and then so that I can hear your thoughts and your honest opinions. So I really appreciate things. So because that's why I since I wrote this book, it's not because of I wanted to make people quiet, but rather wanted to have more response so that we have more dialogue type of thing, so that we learn each other and what really means. And then I guess especially wars and everything is not that simple. I don't think so. There's no answer for that either. So I thank you so much.
We have one more question in the back, sir.
Not exactly a question, but just a thought that, if you go back to the propaganda cartoons of World War II, and it's done back, it's Bugs Bunny versus the Nazis, and I think it's Daffy Duck and the Japanese. What's fascinating about them is that the people making the cartoons had no understanding of Japan whatsoever. All the propaganda World War II cartoons were incredibly racist, and had no real substance to them. And yet the people working on the German cartoons did understand. We had Germans living with us. It was not something that was that alien to us back then. And I think one of the reasons perhaps the swastika has become such an onerous thing here in the United States is it's presented to us by somebody we understood. The Germans, and in the 1920s and 30s, we were all living together here in America, and the Germans took on this other persona and created a symbol that, look, your designer, the swastika is a brilliant graphic design. It burns itself into your eyes the minute you see it. But it was first presented to us, quotes, Western civilization, as connected to something evil. I think we just need a couple of centuries of people not using it anymore to have it revert back to TK's thing. But I think that's maybe part of the cultural difference here, is the actual continental difference. We understood the Germans, the Japanese were like, they're all different than us. They don't even eat the same food.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's part of where I see the struggle the two of you are working with here is kind of the Western versus the Eastern understanding. Even the TK is like, this just is the way it is. It's not right or wrong. But there's so much in the Western. It's got to be number one, top number one. We got to be the best. It's got to be. So I think there's this whole cultural difference that you guys are. Maybe a couple thousand years you can work it out.
Try to work now.
There was a German-American Bund in the United States, and there were over 3 million members, and many of them were located in Yorkville, in New York. And they traveled in parades and marches and went to summer camps in Yaphank, Long Island, and other places. And their message was, the swastika represents our new nation. And it was allowed. But then they found out that that new nation was persecuting groups of people and ultimately killing those people. And I think that certainly had something to do with our indelible memory. And you know, I have found, or used to find, I'd go up to Yorkville when I was in my 20s, and I'd find Nazi paraphernalia, you know, stickers and things. And I'm beginning to find more of that now. So,
Is that worrying? Is that worrisome?
it's very worrisome. You know, it's like we don't, you know, one of the things that TK is saying, we have to have understanding. Well, I think understanding can be weaponized. And right now, we're, with all of this reactivity, with Stephen Miller, you know, it's, history may not be repeating itself to the full extent, but it hasn't gone away. And that's depressing.
Okay. Maybe that's a sober note to end this evening.
But before we end,
Yes?
Can I just say one thing? Because I think we need to be right. To the lady about the Japanese not understanding and not having different. When we understood Southern flag, how long took us to understand the meaning of that? Let's not point fingers at that.
Mirko has put together an exhibition that's been traveling around the world on tolerance. And it's gone to 38 countries. But what I wanted to say is that I'm giving away 8 or 9 copies of this book. And under 8 or 9 people's chairs is a piece of paper. So if you look under your chair and you find the paper.
Do we get Playboy too?
All right, that's a more joyful way to end. There are drinks and cheese outside. Thank you for being here. If you could please give TK and Steve a round of applause. And books as well.